I'm pretty sure, like most Yu-Gi-Oh players, you are waiting for the ban list to change Yu-Gi-Oh. I mean, it's only fair that we get ours by now, right? When you think about it, the OCG got a ban list, Master Duel got a ban list, Speed Duels got a ban list, Duel Links got a ban list, the updated players got a ban list. At this point in time, Cross Duels will get 2 ban lists before we even get ours. What's going on with ya, big dog? And it is an amazing day for Yu-Gi-Oh! I hope that your day, phenomenal. But if it isn't, don't let what happened at the beginning of your day ruin the rest of your day. YCS Niagara was, oh boy. Unfortunately, the event wasn't streamed, but between everything that has been said on Twitter from the players that attended, as well as the Yu-Gi-Oh! Blog articles that we had, it was an interesting event. The reason why I say this is because Sprite in Tier Limit, like usual, dominated the entire event, and players were even more prepared for Mystic Mine. They just drew the outs throughout the entire event, but somehow the Yu-Gi-Oh! Format is a lot different because of it. So YCS Niagara capped out at about 800 players, which is about the same size as a regional in LA, but it was jam-packed with so many competitive players. I think we can use this as a centerpiece to determine if we even need a forbidden list, or is the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game fixing itself and we don't need a forbidden list? Of course, I really do enjoy reading your thoughts, so I want you to post down below in the comment section, what exactly do you need? Do you think that I'm going through the 5 stages of grief? Am I coping right now? Or hold on, this might be some truth into it. Personally, I'm leaning towards the side of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Format actually fixing itself, and I have a good reason why. Mystic Mine has been the card that everyone wants banned, and to be honest with you, I think it's for just reason. Nobody ain't got no time to be sitting down just watching their opponent draw cards for an entire game, and we want Yu-Gi-Oh! Games to be interactive. Dog, if I wanted to play with myself, I got a Battle of Lotion and plenty of links, and I'm not talking about the monsters. But because of this, one tech that I've realized that a lot of players were playing was Eradicator Epidemic Virus, and actually a way to search it. Tier Limit players would use their Tier Limit cards to potentially mill off this Eradicator Epidemic Virus, or they would link summon into Curious Lightsworn to Dominion to send it from the deck to the graveyard, and later on link summon into Nightmare Grifton. After that, all they have to do is just summon a Dark Monster with 2,500 or more attack, which is not hard for this strategy, and boom! Mystic Mine is completely gone. Sprite players have actually also responded by just being big brain and just mainboarding another copy of Sprite Smashers. It's kind of crazy how a searchable removal card could do for you when you can play multiple copies. Another card that was really good as a tech was Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood.
It is time, my brethren. After I bought Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwoods for $20 a copy, I now can reap the benefits of $2 profit for Ghost Sister. You laugh at me now, but the card is competitive.
There's one interesting thing that I've noticed about a lot of these strategy sideboards is that a lot of them were prepared in case they went to time, such as using cards like Skullmark Ladybug to give themselves 1,000 life points, which could be the deciding edge if they went late into a game, which in this format games are going to run fairly late, to be able to give them the deciding win. There is even more awesome techs I'll be able to share with you as we go into the top 32 of YCS Niagara. This may seem a little daunting, but to be honest with you, it's perfectly fine. Relax, it isn't a 2-deck format. The top 32 for YCS Niagara consist of 15 Sprite, 12 Tier Limits, 2 EXO Sisters, 2 Fluunderies, and 1 Math Mech. Now again, on surface, this seems completely terrible. We literally are only playing in a 2-deck format, but just as Konami said it, oh man, these 2 decks have so much variance, there's so much creativity. I hate to say it, but Konami's somewhat right. Out of all of the Sprite tops, there was a Runic, Adventure, a Live Twin, and a Frog variant. There are so many different types of Sprite decks, it's kind of hard to figure out what exactly you want to counter, and the benefit is this is that Sprite isn't 100% smolved, we just know to play more Smashers to out Mystic Mine. Tier Limit takes a completely different route between Tier Limit Danger, you already knew that was coming, Tier Limit Pure, okay that's cool, and then there's Tier Limit Sprite. Yo, this is fucking genius. The tier limit strategy has always naturally struggled against Mystic Mine, which is the reason why players did play cards like Galaxy Cyclone inside of the main board to send it to the graveyard. Now tier limit strategies just mill off monsters like Sprite Jet, then can special summon it to their side of the field with Sprite Elf, which can be linked easily by using tier limit Merly, and then search the Sprite Smashers. As you can see, guys, the fallacy of Mystic Mine is ruining the format is starting to become less and less of a thing, as players are not only very much prepared for it, they have innovated their decks past the card. The unfortunate thing about that is since both Sprite and tier limit have foolproof themselves to Mystic Mine, they fall more susceptible to other cards. Let's take a look at YCS Niagara Colin Cleave's top 32 Math Mech deck profile. This is fairly standard for a Math Mech deck with the main board, but where I like to see the super sexy spice is that sideboard. Players have been dropping Dupe Frog, and you would think it's because it's in favor of that Sprite Smashers. Well, Alpha Master of the Beast becomes a pretty powerful card against the Sprite strategy, being able to smash over the Totally Awesome or Sprite Red and then bounce the remaining cards. There's also tier limit being ultra reliant in the graveyard even now more than before to search their Eradicator Epidemic Virus and to get their Sprite cards off. Well, Silent Graveyard is literally a searchable Abyss Dweller for Math Mechs, seeing that this deck can search any spell or trap card from the deck to the hand. I want to give a mad congratulations to everyone that is top, as well as Colin, and a special thank you to the CarLancho store for providing these images. You guys are amazing and important to the community. So Sprite and tiers pretty much dominated the top 32. Hopefully that wouldn't happen in the top 16, right? Well, there is an inverse where Sprite took most of the representation inside of the 32, but in the 16, it does get different. Inside of the top 16, there were 8 tier elements, 6 Sprite, 1 EXO Sister, and 1 Fluundereeze. And as much as I hate Fluundereeze right now, this deck is actually showing its guts, being in the top 16 at one of the most competitive events in Yu-Gi-Oh! Still shows the staying power of some of the strategies from Burst of Destiny inside of this format. It also highlights another card that Sprite and tier players were not prepared for that we'll highlight a little bit later, but Anthony Chu's Fluundereeze deck actually reminds me of the Fluundereeze deck that I made a little while ago. It uses the Samort cards as well as the field spell cards to gain extra summons. This deck can set up with a huge Apex Avian and an Impin on the first turn. What I personally love about Fluundereeze is that very soon in the 2022 Megatins, cards like Pot of Prosperity will be getting a reprint, making this deck extremely cheap. So this is something that you're probably gonna have to watch out for in your upcoming events. Moving into the top 8, this is where we really start to see a drop off from Sprite, as there are 6 tier elements, 1 Sprite, and 1 EXO Sister. This looks like the exact same thing as the last tournament. Tier element has this in the bag. But before we actually get into some of these tier element builds, one thing I want to highlight is Chansey Wigglestone's pure Sprite deck. It's kind of crazy how we talk about all these variant Sprite decks and all these different type of Sprite decks, and Chansey's is the ones that goes the furthest. This time around, main boarding Nibiru the Primal Being is definitely the big brain smart move, because tier element players nor Sprite players completely respect this card. This card comes completely out of left field and forces your opponent to respect it, and of course, if you have a second hand trap, well, you're gonna break the board. Another thing I do want to give emphasis to is the importance of Sprite Smashers at 2 inside of the deck. A lot of times you'll be finding yourself searching a Sprite starter, which isn't always the correct move. Sprite Smashers is really good at being able to help you crack a board, as well as Psyframe Gear Gamma in the sideboard seems to be the way. And while we're speaking of pure builds, let's go ahead and take a look at Victor Lom's top 8 tier element, showing that pure tier element can still be a force to be reckoned with. As you can see, Nibiru follows in Victor's deck. I genuinely think that Nibiru is one of the strongest hand traps in the game, because a lot of players don't respect it, and even if they do, a second hand trap can allow you to break the board. Another crazy tech that Victor is playing is Paleozoic Dynamiscus. There was actually his feature match where he was completely stopped on his opening turn, but Dynamiscus not only got rid of the opponent's threat, also allowed him to discard a tier limit monster and use its effect to fuse. So what exactly does that mean for Yu-Gi-Oh right now? Well, it actually means that there's almost no way to play your tier limit or Sprite build, which I guess is a congratulations if you are a tier limit or Sprite player, but what exactly does that mean for the balance in the format for the other players? course. Well, if you allow me to mosey on past top 4, which consisted of 3 tier limits and 1 EXO Sister, it strongly feels like we've seen this before, and maybe 3 other different championship events. Nah, tier limits got it this time. Moving on to the grand finals, Jesse Cotton's tier limit build is nothing less of perfection. If you were to play a tier limit deck to win the entire event, I think this might be the build. Cotton's only hand trap in the main board is Nibiru, and I think that solidifies that Nibiru just might be the sneakiest, possibly even best hand trap. He also only plays that 1 copy of Sprite Jet to be able to search the Sprite Smashers that can easily be special summoned to his side of the field with Gigantic Sprite if he has it in deck, or Sprite Elf if he has it in graveyard. The Eradicator Epidemic Virus checks all of those burn, Eldritch, back row heavy strategies. This is when it comes to tier limit. But there is one slight problem. Anytime in deck building in Yu-Gi-Oh, when you fortify one defense, you have to take away from the other. And while I think players can agree Mystic Mine isn't necessarily the healthiest card in Yu-Gi-Oh, it does force tier limit and Sprite players to play against the card, which opens them up for cards like Dimensional Shifter, Silent Graveyard, Alpha Master of the Beast. But it also opens up for other strategies to come, strategies that can take full advantages of cards like Dimensional Sister, strategies like Fluendereese, and of course the first place winner EXO Sister. Now looking at Raymond's first place EXO Sister deck profile, there have been a few concerns. Some players have already said that the only reason why he won was because of Mystic Mine and Necro Valley. Necro Valley, I gotta give it to him. That is a spicy tech there, but we know that those aren't the reasons why he won it. Reason being is because out of all of the profiles that we looked at, every single one of them had a inboard main deck counter against Mystic Mine. The odds of Raymond playing 17 matches and then getting into the top cut where the best of the best players are and have them lose to Mystic Mine for the 4th time, very, very minimal. Other players have said the only reason why Raymond has won is because of Dimensional Shifter. That's like the stupidest thing ever. Now granted, Dimensional Shifter did play a huge part into him winning in the finals, but don't you play Yu-Gi-Oh cards to win? Like seriously, do we play Yu-Gi-Oh cards thinking that we're gonna lose with them? Guys, time after time again, I have to say, every single card you play in your main board, you play it because it fits with your strategy, hopefully, and you play it to win games. Dimensional Shifter is no different than Sprite players playing Sprite Smashers. We've already said it on the meta tier list. If we get into a format where players are playing nothing but Sprite and tier limit, EXO Sister has an extremely good advantage over those 2 decks just naturally because of how the deck plays. But even more importantly, this event actually exposed something about tier limit and Sprite that a lot of players may not have noticed. We have had 4 major tournaments in Sprite and tier limit, have not won any of them. That's huge. In actuality, as much as we like to joke around, a different deck has won all 4 of our major events. It's going to be really interesting to see what's going to win the next. But for right now, the proof is in the pudding. It seems that Power of the Elements has a bigger impact further than tier limit and Sprite, making a ton of decks competitive inside of the format, which begs the question, without these decks topping, do we even need a Forbidden List? I really want to hear what you guys have to say.